What's going on, guys? It's the Bigs Podcast, episode number 114. And today is part two of our 2024 Bigs Draft review. With me this evening, joining me and drafting in the 16th spot was Jason Ashby of Denver, Colorado. Jason, 16th is always an interesting spot to be. How did you find it, and how did you enjoy your team build?
It was not so sweet. It was not a sweet 16 for me. I did not enjoy the experience. I am satisfied with the team that I was able to patch together. I know there's work to be done still, but the waiting game, the waiting and just watching, you pick two in a row and then you sit there for a while and I don't know, it was hard for me to focus and pay attention, see who gets picked. I couldn't. I was doing other things. I was doing dishes. I was doing all kinds of things in between the picks. And yeah, I got sniped quite a few times. And it was rough. It was rough, but ultimately I'm not upset with the team that I put together. Um, but it's only March 18th, so we'll see where we go in April.
We will see where we end up in April and beyond. With us as well, my roommate, my best friend, the commissioner of this wonderful league, and former three-time Bigs champion, drafting from the number 3 hole, Ben Nisman. Benny, how did you enjoy your positioning and team build this year?
I think you could tell that I was a very happy commissioner and fantasy owner after last night. We all had our own plan out there, and I'll just say it, and it's not just because it's the 20th year. That was the most fun I've ever had at the draft. The fact that all 16 made it, it happens, tends to happen every year, but it gets overlooked, and that's what's one thing that's so special about our league. Now, myself, you, Joe, you, Jason, Jake Ferraro, who did the first half of this draft review, Michael Sherman, Ari Nisman, Adam Lowenstein, those 7 original members of the league. You have to go 1 year later, you get Josh Haber in the finals last year. 2 years later, 2008, you get his brother, Mike Haber, returning defending champion. So you got 9. Then you got to get a whole decade, and you get Bobby Russo in 2018, batting 333. That's a Hall of Famer getting into the playoffs 2 out of 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
You go 1 year later, Frank Bucco, Jimmy Dunlap, finalist, former champion. 2020, you get Costas Paragas, that's a finalist, and Brian Lebo, a semifinalist. Then you go 3 years later. Now it's Henry Collins, first year in the league, playoffs, the only 21-0 sweep.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one more year, you bring in Cody. That's the 16th guy. Now, the wild card. All 16 of us were there. It was heaven. For a commissioner, it was just a real pleasure how everyone's coming from these different dynamics and different stories at different times. It was really special. And I appreciate it. And I was glad that you guys were all involved. And I thank you all for it.
Benny, I also want to ask you here. We did not have the Zoom meeting like we have the last 4 years. How'd you feel about that after having it for 4 seasons and then deciding not to go with it this year? How'd you feel?
I thought it just number one, I thought it was better because it added a new dynamic to it, something that we weren't used to now for a little bit. Like 4 years now, it felt like it became the regular. But more than anything, we all had our own thoughts. We all had our own plan. We had our own take on what we thought was the right time to do something, and there was no trend set by anything that was discussed versus just being in our own thoughts and our own plan. So I enjoyed it more. I don't know how everybody seems to feel, but it seems there was a consensus that there was something that was significantly better about the way that we did it. It felt authentic with all of us in our own lives, with whoever they were in that room at that time, whoever was surrounding us and what was going on for those 3 hours. It systematically changed everything that's going to happen throughout. That's just how I see it. And I really appreciate that everyone was able to go through with it, doing it a new way after doing it 4 years in a row. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's not the new way, it's the old way. You know, it's
Yeah.
the old
Well, yeah,
classic way
yeah.
of doing things without having anybody else there influencing your picks. I certainly did enjoy it myself, and it the reason I enjoyed it was because I didn't have to host a show while I was drafting. And this year I feel a lot more stable about my team. I was able to just sort of relax in between picks rather than trying to keep up and keep talking and keep things moving, which ultimately brought on the problem that existed from the show existing itself, the influence of an outside person while you're picking.
Yeah.
All of that is to say, thank you guys so much for a tremendous draft in 2024. I personally had a blast. I think everybody else did as well. We're going to dive right here into the team by team breakdown. We're going to start with Jason's at 16 and then wrap around from 1 to 7 to finish out the 8 teams that Jay and I did not speak about earlier today. So, Jason, that means you are under the microscope first here, my friend. And I'm going to kick it off with a question for you.
Okay.
You started off your draft with Spencer Strider, Matt Olson, Mike Trout, Edwin Diaz, and Royce Lewis in the first 5 picks. You said on our starting pitcher podcast that Corbin Burns was your number 1 starter and that he was going to win the AL Cy Young, and yet your first round pick is Spencer Strider. Why?
Yeah, he's putting together spring training is what it is, but he's putting together an unworldly spring training. I couldn't overlook it. At this point, he is the best pitcher, and I couldn't stomach taking Corbin Burns in the first round or the top of the second round. Strider, I could live with that. I definitely felt dirty taking 2 Braves in a row and owning 2 Braves on my team. I don't like it, but I had to do it.
Also, at the end of the day, you took Mike Trout over Nolan Jones. That was one breakdown that Jay Ferraro and I have on our Stack and Commons. We were like, how is Mike Trout ahead of Nolan Jones? You were the Nolan Jones guy in the preseason, but to see Mike Trout get on your team over that guy, I certainly love to see that.
Yeah, I felt like center field there was gonna be a big drop off, and being where I was in the draft, I couldn't see myself waiting around and being stuck with a guy like, you know, Mike Yastrzemski or something like that, like as my center fielder. So I needed somebody who I could be sure of, as long as he's out there, he is still Mike Trout.
Absolutely. Benji, dive in here. Let me talk to you about the end of the third round where Mike Trout went and the turn where Edwin Diaz went. Diaz was the first closer off of the board in round 4, a bit later than last year. You're the closer guy. How'd you feel about seeing Edwin Diaz be the first one off the board?
I was satisfied with that pick as well as most of these, is but just because I realized that he was in a position where he didn't know what was going to fall back. So, Jason, I think you did a splendid job as far as saying, like, I know I should get a closer here because I don't know when the next one I'm going to get my favorite one before all the others go. So I know I have someone that I think is a surefire guy, has the job, no problem. I had no problem with it. I loved that Mike Trout was a potential, like, it was obvious to me that he was going to go around here, the third round. Maybe he drops to the fourth round. I have no problem with that pick there. Of course, the fact that you have 2 Braves, it's bittersweet, you know. If they don't do so well and it's the Mets kicking their ass all season, you'd sign up for it.
Yeah.
So you went your with right now. If Spencer Strider, you think that's the best guy right now, I agree with that decision. You're just gonna
Yeah.
have to see how it plays out. You know, most of it's subjective.
Yeah.
Royce
And
Lewis, to me, as the 5th pick, as I bring it one over, I don't know that guy, so it's hard for me. I'm wondering what you think about that pick specifically.
again, it was one of those where, like, I just felt like if I didn't get a third baseman here, like, it was going to be a big drop off. He was kind of that end of that first tier for me, of like safety net third baseman. after that, it was going to be kind of more of a crapshoot. Like who was left after round 5? Like, uh, I mean, Joe,
Spencer
you can tell.
Steer was third base eligible. He went after that. Max
Yeah,
Muncy, Yandy Diaz, um, and then not another third baseman for a while.
yeah. So I don't know. I just felt like the power that Royce Lewis possesses was just too tantalizing to let go of. Um, so we'll see.
Yeah, the postseason that he put up and the grand slams that he's hit are not to be ignored. We'll have to see if a fifth round pick is a bit too rich on him, if he can stay healthy, or if this is one of those picks we look back on and go, ouch.
Yeah, it could go either way.
Mhm.
Yeah, this will be an interesting one to look back on for sure.
No doubt. Sixth round, you go O'Neal Cruz, then Evan Carter in the 7th, Chris Bassett in the 8th, Christian Javier in the 9th, and your namesake, Salvador Perez, in the 10th round. First of all, explain to us the team name Saldor for us.
Lador Vador, from generation to generation. It's a Hebrew phrase, and it just I was trying to figure out a name for this team. I was looking down up and down the roster, and it just hit me, and I was like, okay, that works.
All right. Lador Vador.
Cool name.
Salvador Vador. I will get that
Arguably,
eventually.
arguably, yeah, we're gonna have to dig into the team names at the end, but this right now is contender for the top team name as of right now for
It's a
me.
good one. It's a good one. To the guys that you picked here, O'Neal Cruz, Evan Carter, Chris Bassett, Christian Javier, and Sal Perez. The two pitchers certainly back up Spencer Strider rather nicely. Chris Bassett, Christian Javier. Bassett's going to eat innings, and Javier, he could be the best pitcher on this team if something happens, something goes sideways.
Hmm. Yeah, and again, like I was kind of feeling like I needed to get these guys before they started popping away. I started seeing guys go off the board that I was really eyeing. Like Yamamoto and things like that. And so I was like, okay, let me grab some safety nets. I know Bassett's going to be out there. Javier is on a winning team. Like these are guys who I feel safe with being my 2 and 3. And if I have 3 guys, drafting from the 16th spot, if I have 3 starters that I feel comfortable with, I feel like I at least had a decent draft.
Now, Evan Carter is an interesting one. He goes behind a bunch of outfielders that went in round 7, guys like George Springer, Anthony Santander, and Teoscar Hernandez. One of these things is not like the other. Those 3 guys are 25, 30 homer guys. Do you think Evan Carter is going to be able to keep up with them, or is this more a power speed play for a 2020 type guy?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I don't know what to make of Evan Carter. I don't know what he's going to bring. But I know he's on a winning ball club. He's hitting in the middle of that order. Um, and he's young. So yeah, I like the youth. I think there's something there. I just don't know what. Um, again, I feel like this could be like another Royce Lewis pick where like this could be a steal or this could be like, a complete bust.
Yeah.
So time will tell, but I didn't feel great about it, but I felt okay enough about it. Like, I didn't want, Lane Thomas and I didn't want Josh Lowe, who was already hurt. Like this it felt good to me.
Okay. Benny, get in here. How are you feeling about these 5 picks? O'Neal Cruz, Evan Carter, Bassett, Javier, and Perez.
I love the value for Bassett, and I think Christian Javier could have a terrific season. So having one guy in the Astros rotation, it was brilliant right there. I thought that was the go-to guy. I agree with what you're saying about Evan Carter, but that's that's what I find interesting that you're saying you're not sure about him, but it felt like the 7th round for you, instead of like maybe a George Springer, if you will, that goes a lot more. Maybe you could kind of grasp what he is a little bit more than an Evan Carter.
Yeah,
So
George Springer, I see him on the decline. He's been hurt. He's been less effective. Um, I've been down that road with Springer before, so maybe there was some bias there.
mhm.
Um, Santander, you
Yeah,
know, he would have been interesting. or was he even available yet? No, he wasn't available anymore, was he?
No, the
No,
guys that
in the
went
seventh.
after that pick, yeah, Carter went at the very end of round 7
Yeah.
rather than the top of round 8. So if we're looking at guys in round 8 that went in the
Outfielders.
outfielders, it's Lane
Mhm.
Thomas, it's Josh Lowe, and that finishes out round 8. Round 9, we get guys like Jordan Walker, Marcelo Zuna, Stephen Kwan, Jackson Churio. Those guys all go.
Yeah. So like I had my eye on Jordan Walker because I like the dual eligibility, but I just felt
Mhm.
like round 7 was just a little too early for him. So I was like, and I didn't like anybody else in round 7, but so I just went with Carter. I feel like he can at least bring back some good value.
Okay.
And just and a note on my namesake, I I probably panicked a little bit because I really wanted Francisco Alvarez, and Sherman sniped him right out in front of me, and so I had to kind of pivot. And
Pivot.
there probably were some other catchers I probably could have waited for, or maybe even just grabbed right then and there. But he has the
Not for
dual.
nothing. I wanted to say MJ Melendez in the 14th round, which is a catcher and corner
Yes.
outfielder.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I probably panicked a little bit. I think I was even like I think that pick might have even been like close to the end of the minute and 15. But he has the dual eligibility. He's gonna play, as long as he's healthy every day, even if he's DHing. So I don't hate
That's
it.
good.
I don't hate
Yeah.
it. We'll see.
No, I think
Yeah.
it's fine. I think it's 25
Yeah.
homers and a decent batting average. I don't think it's a bad pick here in the 10th round at all.
Yeah.
The
No,
Evan Carter pick in the 7th, the Royce Lewis pick in the 5th. Those are the big question marks here early going. I don't think Sal Perez is a question here.
Cool.
yeah. No, I think it's terrific to get your catcher in the 10th round, and it's a guy that's, I mean, consistently for me, just one of the best power hitter catchers in the last, 20, 25 years, like as far
Right.
as consistency.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a guy, I mean, you have him, he's healthy, you secure that spot. You're not even worried about catcher anymore.
Right. And if he's going to DH a lot, hopefully the health, won't be too much of a problem.
Yeah, I think he's going to stay healthy this year with a lot of DHing. They like Freddie Fermin to catch more than him. So,
Yeah.
yeah. 11 through 15, Chas McCormick, Christopher Morel in the 12th, Byron Buxton in the 13th, Jose Barrios in the 14th, and Luis Rengifo in the 15th. A lot of eligibility out of this. You get a lot of positions covered all at once. McCormick covering all 3 outfielders. Christopher Morel, second and center and right. And Luis Rengifo, second, third, short, and right. Ben, which one of these picks do you like the best out of these 5?
Wow, good question. Byron Buxton only being eligible for utility it confuses me. I feel like we've always seen him at least in center field, right? So
Yeah,
uh
he didn't play a single game in center field last year, but
yeah, no, I get it, but
he's
he's not
going to be back there. They are pledged to play him there. So
yeah,
So
he'll
long
get
as he's
that
healthy.
eligibility.
yeah,
Right. All right. Well, he's healthy going in, right? He's played in spring. So I'm assuming he's
Jason?
playing.
he's a little nicked right now, but they're downplaying it. So, but look between him and Trout, like hopefully one of those guys stays healthy. So I at least have one of them. And if the other is if they're both healthy, then they're be in the utility spot. Uh,
Sure.
but I like between the two of them, I feel comfortable having at least one of them in the lineup, on a regular basis.
Mhm.
So of my favorite, I would probably say Chas McCormick because he plays all 3 and he's on the Houston Astros. So if
Mhm.
he's getting at bats in that lineup, he's going to get a lot of opportunities. And I think you don't really have to worry about him as far as his glove. He's going to be legging them all out, and he seems like a pretty concentrated player and like just a ball player. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
2020 dude last year, or at least damn close to it. I think. Again, I think his playing time is safe. I think it's Jake Myers who's really going to have a hard time getting playing time between him and Mauricio Dubon. I like
And
that pick. I like Jose Barrios in the 14th. Jason, how are you feeling about these 5?
Yeah, look, if you look at my first, 10 picks, other than Salvador Perez, everybody is single eligible, and I really highly value eligibility and being able to move guys around. So I knew I needed some guys that had multiple positions. And at the time, like I was looking at James Outman. He went off the board before I could get him. So I was like, okay, McCormick is probably the best of these multiple eligible guys that I can grab right now. So him, and then Morel, I didn't have a second baseman at the time. I was going back and forth between either him or Nolan Gorman. And just having that outfield eligibility to go with the second base was just too tantalizing for me. So I had to grab him. And then Ringifo also, just to have guys that I can move around. If somebody gets hurt, if there's a rain out, whatever, that I can plug in the infield or the outfield, was really, something that I needed to do.
Yeah.
I guess
And there's
Nolan Gorman going right after you took Sal made that decision a little bit easier the next time
Right.
by,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ben, you were going to say.
no, it's fine. I thought the fact that you got all these positions when there's often a time where you're hoping that you don't have to use an ad to fill that spot on the day. Now we've taken two ads out. It's nice to have so that you don't necessarily you have every position that can like be spelled for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
a lot of
like I was
versatility.
gonna stash Tommy Edmond, but like there was no timeline for him, so I was like, nah, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Yeah, there were some other guys I was looking at, but it just didn't feel right. So and then Jose Barrios, like look, we've been down the Barrios road before, you and me, Ben, and I it was a risk, but at 14, I feel like, he's another starter. So now I have four starters that I feel at least comfortable with it. I know he's going to get strikeouts. He's going to throw innings. So like, and he's going to get wins on the Blue Jays. So that's four starters that I feel pretty good about.
Mm. Yeah, Barrios is one of those guys that I've just watched, and when I watch him, he always doesn't do well.
Right.
So for me, it's like different. That doesn't mean that he's not a great pitcher. It's just circumstantial
He's a
sometimes.
bit of a
Just like
time bomb.
I've
Yeah.
seen, I've
Yeah.
seen when like he doesn't have it, you know. But a lot of pitchers are like that, and
Yeah.
he's been pretty consistently on more than off.
Right.
So it's good to have like a serviceable guy, and he's your number four.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about here?
Yeah, pretty evening out stabilizing is the word
Yeah.
I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Stabilizing type guy as your four starter. Rounding out this draft, after Luis Rengifo, the 16th round was Brian Abreu in his 2-game suspension for hitting Adolis Garcia in the World Series. Garrett Whitlock, Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan in the 19th, Matt Brash in the 20th, Henry Davis, Tyler Rogers, Jordan Lawler, Jonathan Loizaga, Jose Quintana, and Michael Bush to finish out the draft. Benji, who do you like in this group of 10?
Oh, firstly, Garrett Whitlock, absolutely. Like whatever role that he's going to be in, I think that guy's excellent. And aside from that, I love Katana in the 25th round. Not for nothing, he's the Mets ace. And if the offense can put it together to what's on the back of the baseball cards and what they should be able to do, they should be able to score a decent, maybe like consistently like 4 runs, hopefully. So
Yeah, I mean,
if
if
they
he can
can
get
do
10
that,
wins, that's a hell of a pick in the 25th round.
yeah, it seems like a good guy. As long his my thing always for him was his health, but he's shown like at least since he's been back that he can pitch. And if he has that potential to be an under 3 ERA guy, like he was in 2022, so I don't know if that's what he is, or is he more of like a 3.76, an over 4? It's hard, but it's an amazing wild card guy to have a starting pitcher on the Mets, and someone who gets the ball on opening day. They have the confidence in him. That says something. I can't do it because it's hard. It's harder for me to
Right.
watch a pitcher like Scherzer. That one year that I got him, that felt comfortable. But in general, like I get so mad watching pitchers on my team when they're bad. So that would have been a tough one for me. You as a Mets fan, if you can handle that easily, or who knows how long he'll even be on your team as the 25th pick anyway, Jason.
Right. We'll see
Right.
how that goes.
Jason, what did you love about these 10 guys?
So Henry Davis is going to be the Pirates catcher. So he eventually will get catcher and right field eligibility. So I'm looking forward to that, to have just kind of a backup in case something happens to Perez. He'll be the backup. I'm stashing Jordan Lawler in the NA spot because I don't think that Perdomo is a long-term answer in Arizona. So I'm waiting for the day that Lawler is the guy, and then I can be Jordan the King Lawler.
Yeah.
and I didn't love taking Brian Abreu as my second reliever. That's where like being in the 16th round really or the 16th pick kind of killed me because I feel like I really missed out. I had to grab Edwin Diaz in the 4th because I knew I wasn't going to see him again, and I really missed out on a lot of the relievers in those middle rounds. So that's why, like late in the draft, I have Matt Brash, Tyler Rogers, Loizaga, like guys that I can put in the relief spot, and Garrett Whitlock because he's probably going to be in the rotation, but he has the relief pitcher eligibility.
Yeah. This is probably the first time in 6 years that a closer wasn't picked in the 3rd round. It's been one of us. I'm pretty positive it was Bobby last year. But
it was Bobby to start it off, and then Josh Hader went like right after that.
Yeah, but that I found interesting that like no one went for it, and then you were just thinking, it hasn't happened yet. Got to do it now or never.
And especially
he got
with the Devin Williams injury, like that took a big closer off the board.
Yeah.
So like it had to be then or never.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you handled 16th great, man. It's not an easy spot. I've done it before. I've done 15th and 16th. And in 2012, I was 16th. I got to the final, against Mike.
Yeah.
And we all know how that turned out. But I think if you can play with it through the year, you can figure out like certain things that you could potentially like just work with. And some of these guys, you just feel like their production, their playing time isn't there. They don't matter. But if through this whole thing you find an equation there, then I think it could be a really strong team, especially with you managing it.
Yeah. And
what was your favorite pick, Jason? What was your favorite pick of the whole draft?
Of mine?
Yeah.
Probably the I think I love Edwin Diaz in the 4th round. Like I think, because that was a problem of mine last year too, was saves and having a reliable closer. And this is a guy that can do that for me. So I'm happy there. O'Neal Cruz in the 6th round, I think, if he's finally healthy and he can put a full season out, there's 30-30 potential there. So
no doubt.
I'm happy with that. And I love the Bassett and Javier kind of combo. So those are probably my favorites.
All right. Let's move on to Jimmy Dunlap's team here. We're going to start with Yogi's number 1 overall pick of Ronald Acuna. Comes back around in the second, the 2-3 turn, gets Pablo Lopez and Luis Robert. And then at the 4-5 turn, Cody Bellinger and Matt McLean. Ben, I'm coming to you first here. You expected Ronald Acuna number 1 overall, I assume. But what about these rest of these 5 picks?
Wow. It's a good question. I mean, being the first pick, firstly, it's also a blessing and a curse. Like you get your pick of the favorites, but at the same time, you're in a similar situation, Jason. You're waiting the same exact amount of time.
Yeah.
So it's tough. But I would say that if I'd have to make a pick amongst them all, it's probably Pablo Lopez. There are not too many pitchers that does what he does, and he's been really consistent with the strikeouts. So I think in knowing that there's going to be a lot of starting pitchers potentially disappearing before it gets to Jimmy again, this was the time to do it, and I love that decision.
Yeah, I said in the preseason that this dude can anchor his staff, and here we are. He's going to be anchoring Jimmy's staff all season long. I absolutely love it. Jason, what do you like about this first 5 here? Or what don't you like about the first 5 here?
I like it all. I like pairing Lubov and Cody Bellinger because they're both center field eligible, but you have the first base eligibility for Bellinger. So in case one of them, in case like Luis Robert gets hurt, which is we've seen it many times, you have a backup center fielder. So yeah, I like those pair together. And to Ben's point, yeah, Pablo Lopez was an excellent pick to be your ace at the end of the second round. Like that's great.
Yeah. He gets his number 2 in the 6th round. Dylan Cease, Gleyber Torres in the 7th, Josh Young in the 8th, Wyatt Langford not taking a major league at bat in the 9th, and Sean Murphy in the 10th. Jason, I'll come to you first here. Wyatt Langford is the interesting one here in the 9th round.
Yeah, he's definitely an unknown. He's an unknown commodity. I guess on the 9th round, again, this could be one of those picks where it's like, wow, that was a great pick, or oops, this was a mistake. Right now, he's the only utility eligible. I don't know where he will play in the Rangers. He may not
Center
even make
field.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
It,
Evan Carter in left, Adolis Garcia in right, and this kid in center.
Yeah,
has he been like assured of opening day roster? I don't even know if that's been,
yeah. I'm pretty sure I watched him hit a grand slam in spring training. Pretty sure this was the guy.
okay.
But
Yeah, and him and Josh Young back to back, two pair of Rangers back to back.
yeah,
And but otherwise I like this grouping. Gleyber Torres in 7th round is a great spot. Um, and Dylan Cease, look, it might be a little early for Cease, but again, he needed that number 2, and this was the time to get it because again, he was going to sit there and watch a ton of pitchers go off the board. So he got the guy that he felt was the best around, and I can't blame him for that.
Yeah,
yeah.
Dylan Cease is the number 2 is interesting. Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to include that. I realized that he got Gleyber Torres and then Josh Young. Those two together, you want maybe one of them has a good season, one of them doesn't. But if you hit on one of those guys, what the upside is, you can earn that 8th or 7th pick and just say, one of my infielders was really, really strong. And I think there's a good chance that one out of two of those guys is. It's possible the other guy is fairly average, but having Gleyber Torres, a Yankees hitter, is already big. And then Josh Young are arguably one of the best third basemen now, up and comers, and in a solid lineup as well, obviously.
Yeah. 11 through 15, he goes Chris Sale in the 11th round, Carlos Rodon in the 12th, Kerry Carpenter in the 13th, Christopher Sanchez in the 14th, and Eugenio Suarez in the 15th. Jason, you had Eugenio Suarez a couple of years in a row, so let's talk about this guy being the backup third baseman for him.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because that's exactly it. So him and Young and Josh Young are gonna, vie for that third base spot. But right now, Langford's got to fill in that utility spot, assuming he's playing every day. So one of these guys is gonna hit the bench, every day. So it'll be curious to see how he plays that out. The Suarez, he's going to get a ton of strikeouts, but he's still good for 25, 30 homers, on a really good up and coming Arizona team. So yeah, I'll be curious to see how he does. The one that just strikes me is Rodon, and I'd love to remember where I drafted Rodon last year, because 12th round to me, this seems like a real time bomb waiting to happen to me.
Wow. You think it's a big risk?
I do. I do. I do. After what he did last year, I mean, there's certainly potential for a bounce back from him, but I don't know who was around in the 12th round, but like there had to have been somebody better. Nate Eovaldi was around, I think.
Yeah, the back end of the 12th round is where Rodon got taken. So the 13th round, we get Nate Eovaldi, we get Eduardo Rodriguez, Brandon Pfaadt, Marcus Stroman. All right, there's the comparison. Marcus Stroman versus Carlos Rodon on the same team, Jason.
I probably go with Stroman just because there's consistency there. Like Rodon he's been really good. He's been god awful. And like at least Stroman is consistent. He's there. You know what he's gonna get. He's not a ton of strikeouts, but he's good at run prevention. And he's there every fifth day. Same with Eduardo Rodriguez. I would take an Eduardo Rodriguez over Rodon.
Ben, same question here. The Rodon versus Evaldi, Rodriguez, Pfaadt, Stroman. Those four guys.
Actually, I don't know the answer to that because if Rodon is healthy and he's on his game, he's better than all of them. Same goes for Evaldi. These guys at their best, to me, they're a crapshoot, which is, why starting pitching was so, it's something that I kind of feared, in a way, this draft. But it's really hard for me to say that answer. But I don't hate the pick where it is because a Yankee pitcher, again, yeah, like Stroman is good at avoiding home runs, which is excellent. And Rodon, you know what? The thing is, Jason, what's interesting is I vividly remember how much you wanted the Mets to get Rodon. Like this was the free agent you wanted to get. Like you know what the potential could be, and it wasn't that long ago. So I think at this point, like you just hope that he's healthy. If he's healthy, it's gold because they should if that whole lineup is healthy, they should score a bunch of runs very consistently. It's one of the better lineups 1 through 9 that they've had in a good amount of time.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
very true.
Yeah, definitely.
16 through 26, Junior Caminero, another NA eligible guy who got shipped off to Rays minor leagues. Rhys Hoskins, Luke Raley, Jeremy Pena, Rafael Montero in the 20th, Tim Meza in the 21st, Taylor Rogers in the 22nd, Chris Stratton in the 23rd, Joe Jimenez, Brooks Raley, and finishes it off with Bryce Elder. There's the bullpen, and Bryce Elder's another guy who got sent to the minors. So he's got a little bit of housekeeping to do to figure out how he's going to keep all of these NA guys on the roster. We'll see who breaks camp and who doesn't. Would you guys, Ben, go ahead and talk about these final 10 picks here. Who's your favorite out of this group?
Ooh, wow, great question. I guess, wow. The Luke Raley versatility intrigues me, that he could do quite a few things. Other than that, I'm not sure. I guess Tyler Rogers, he would be the right-hander to give Doval a breather if they're winning and they're in safe situations very consistently. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure on most of it, but he built his bullpen towards the end, which, if you have the right guys and they're consistently throwing a scoreless inning, even if maybe their whip goes up a little bit, but they're getting you close and they don't get the loss. Maybe you fall into a win that way. It works out. I've had relievers, we've seen relievers that have not, and that's just been middle relievers and just had like a 1.5 kind of ERA year. That's a guy worth having, and maybe you don't want to let him go. We saw it happen last year as well with Adams' team.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy does not have a true frontline closer on this team.
Yeah, and I was looking at that too, and this is a prime example of why I felt I needed to take Diaz in the 4th round because I didn't want to end up in this situation where, 20 through 26, all he takes are pitchers, and except for Bryce Elder, they're all relievers, and like you said, none of them are a sure thing for a closer gig, barring an injury. So, yeah, that's a rough position to be in.
Yeah, and even if there's an injury, well, Rafael Montero's on Houston. He's probably 4th in line at best.
Yeah.
Tim Mays is probably 3rd or 4th in line. Taylor Rogers, that could be a guy if something happens to Duvall. Chris Stratton on Kansas City, probably not.
No.
Joe Jimenez in Atlanta, probably not.
My mistake. I thought it was Tyler Rogers that he had. He has Taylor Rogers, the lefty.
The lefty.
So in that case, I think they would go to Tyler Rogers before they go to Taylor Rogers.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then
confused. Brooks Raley is the lefty in New York. He's probably maybe 2nd or 3rd in line. It depends on how you look at Ottavino.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he just got a bunch of guys that are going to get him a bunch of raps, but there's no saves to be found on this team. And I think that's the only weakness.
Yeah. And I've been there before.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yep.
But the offense is really solid, and I think the rotation has a lot of potential. And all of a sudden, Chris Sale looks ready to go.
Right?
Yeah, I almost
What
took Sale,
happened?
but I couldn't stand having three Braves on my team, so
Mhm.
I couldn't do that. But
Wow,
I thought about it.
that was the reason?
Yes, it was.
Yep. He tells me that I have to look him right in the face and go, I have 3 Phillies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel bad for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Favorite pick of the draft from this team, Benjamin?
Wow, what a great question. Probably Pablo Lopez.
Yeah, that would have been mine too.
Mhm.
I
Jason?
Yeah, but definitely Pablo Lopez. Reese Hoskins is an interesting one too. He's gonna struggle to get him into the lineup, I think, barring like a trade or anything. But this is a guy who could bounce back, and put up, a 20-25 home run season. Maybe he's a trade candidate. So I'd
Maybe.
be curious to see what he does with Reese Hoskins.
Yeah. All right, we move on to 16 Candelarios. That is, in fact, Josh Haber. He had the number 2 overall pick and went with Mookie Betts, backed it up with Corey Seager, Adalis Garcia, Yohan Duran, and Logan Gilbert. Top 5 picks here, Jason Ashby. What do you love? What do you hate?
Well, I feel bad for him because Yohan Duran is injured with an oblique injury. We could be looking at a fairly significant absence from his number 4 pick and his top closer. So
Yikes.
we'll get to it. He has a few others, so he's gonna be okay from a closer standpoint, but it really hurts to have your number 4 guy hurt before the season even starts. So
Yeah.
that's rough.
Yeah. Benji, what do you love about these top 4 guys? Or other than Duran?
Um, I would say, I guess Adalis Garcia, just because of the dual eligibility and what he can bring power wise. Obviously, Seager, as far as I know, Seager is not going to start on the team, but it seems like they're confident that he'll be back soon. Obviously, his ability, I mean, he's potentially a first rounder if you're getting what you hope to get out of Corey Seager. But
Mhm.
still, the answer is probably Garcia, but it's hard to say between those three. Obviously, you can't go wrong with Mookie as number one.
No
They
doubt.
are optimistic that Seager and Josh Young will be in the opening day lineup. So we'll see.
Wow.
We'll see.
If you get 150 games out of Corey Seager, it'll probably be the first time he's done it in his career. So I would have thought that this was a little bit rich if he was going to miss some time to start the season. If he doesn't, then this might be a pretty big steal at the back
Yeah.
end of the second round.
Yeah.
Logan Gilbert, by the way, I love as the 5th round ace of this staff. Like, he could be a dude that goes out and just gets Cy Young votes this year. It'd be
Oh,
amazing.
absolutely. Absolutely.
6 through 10, we get Yandy Diaz, Paul Sewald, Kenley Jansen in the 8th, Jordan Walker in the 9th, and Merrill Kelly in the 10th. And it was at this point in the draft I texted Josh Haber and I go, "You're taking basically my team from last year." Mookie Betts, Corey Seager, Yandy Diaz, Paul Sewald, Jordan Walker. That's 5 of the 10 guys taken were on my team last year, even if I did move Seager mid-season. Jason, what do you like about this group here?
You look, having Sewald and Jansen, as long as Jansen is healthy, I don't know what his status is, but again, this at least helps lessen the burden of not having Duran. The Diaz pick, I definitely feel like that was a bit of a Joe Block maybe. And again, I was eyeing Jordan Walker. I was thinking about it. The strikeouts kind of weaned me off of him. But I like the dual eligibility.
I had already taken Machado and Harper by this point, so Yandy Diaz was kind of off my radar. And you know what? Let somebody else have him after the season I had last year. I think he winning a batting title and having over 20 homers is, one of those things where I'm like, okay, go ahead and fly now. Let somebody else get him on the higher price tag. Benji, he took Merrill Kelly, who was arguably your ace last year. How do you feel about not being able to get that guy this year?
Not too disappointed. He is somewhat of an older pitcher, and there's some mileage on that arm. He's super consistent. I think he's a good guy to have because it seems like no matter what, he's a baller. He's going to go and try and get you all those innings. So, but no, it wasn't a guy that I was targeting throughout the draft at all.
Gotcha. 11 through 15, you
Oh,
Darvish.
I wanted to bring up
Go
one
ahead.
thing since about this group of players.
Go ahead, man.
I think Yandy Diaz is probably my favorite because I think when you look back at his season for our league and the types of stats that he brings, he's arguably a second rounder. I mean, was he not the batting champion?
Yeah, batting
For
champion
me,
with 20 plus homers.
I think at this point, and I wasn't there with Josh, obviously, so I don't know, but if I'm him and it's on the way back, your sixth pick. He was second pick, which means he didn't even want Jimmy with two picks saying, no, I'm getting Yanti now just in case with Jimmy's two picks. He's taking them. You know, that says something. I think that was the time he needed to strike with Yanni. He knew that it was a long time and he wasn't picked for whatever reason. Maybe
Yeah.
it's because of the less protection in the lineup now with the Rays. I don't know. But I was very surprised that this guy went as far as he did. And then as far as the rest of the group, just shoring up the bullpen, having two nice guys there that are consistently save guys. You know that they're going to at least get opportunities. And then, yeah, having that part of the rotation filled as well. I think Josh did a great job in general.
I think it was a great little 5 set here that he got. Jordan Walker, double eligibility, 2 closers, Diaz, double eligibility, and former batting champ, and an innings eater in Merrill Kelly to go as his number 2 behind Logan Gilbert. 11 through 15, we get the number 3 in Yu Darvish, then Jaron Duran, Nate Eovaldi, Alex Verdugo, and Jamer Candelario. Benji, what'd you like about this group here?
I mean, Candelario has some upside now. Like we've seen him a while, and it's like starting to seem like this guy is a starter. Like he is a starter in this league, and he's made a name for himself, and he's made you learn his name. So that intrigues me. Oh man, they all intrigue me. I think Verdugo, if he's potentially the leadoff hitter for the Yankees, that would be amazing opportunity if he could be an on-base guy, be a more selective hitter. And Nate Eovaldi, my only question is like Nate Eovaldi's arm and shoulder he's gone through so much in his past that I'm just blown away by his longevity and his consistency. Like recently, and like when he can pitch, he's pretty damn solid. So his rotation looks nice. Now the bullpen, we know from the earlier rounds he's shored up, and now just another solid potential leadoff hitter, a guy in a Yankee lineup. All these picks, just very, very solid. He knew what he was doing here, and he had a plan.
Jason, do you like the Jaron Duran pick as much as I do?
You read my mind. Yes, I loved it. I almost went that direction instead of Chas McCormick. Having the extra eligibility of right field for McCormick kind of sealed the deal a little bit, but I love Duran. I think he is poised for a big breakout. So yeah, I hope this works out well for him because I love this pick.
If you ever decide to change your team name off of 16 Candelarios, you could steal Frank's team name from last year in Duran because you have 2 of them.
Yes, sir.
His team name is Ladorvador or Saldorvador.
No. If Josh ever decides to come off
Josh.
16
Okay.
Candelarios, yeah. 16 through 26, we'll start with Kevin Ginkel in the 16th, Devin Williams, the injured closer, in the 17th, Mitch Garver in the 18th, Chris Martin, Josh Winkowski, Austin Hayes, Brendan Bernardino, Braxton Garrett in the 23rd, Ezekiel Duran in the 24th, Kyle Manzardo in the 25th, and finishes it off with Justin Topa in the 26th round. Got a lot of bullpen guys, a lot of Boston bullpen guys behind Kenley Jansen, just in case they decide to trade him. I would think that's why he went this way.
Yeah, or if he's hurt, which he is. So I think that's genius. It kind of reminds me of what he did with the Dodgers bullpen last year, where he gobbled up all of the guys who could be behind Evan Phillips. And I love the stash of Devin Williams because 3 months is a while, but it's not the whole season. So, if he comes back, there's no way he's not going to reclaim that closer role. So great stash there. And look, Justin Topa in the 26th round, he could be a guy with Durant out. He could be one of the options for ninth inning duties in Minnesota. So that ends up being a really sneaky last pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if Duran is down, he could be the guy. And Benny, what do you love about this back end of the draft?
Who do I love? Probably Austin Hayes.
Yeah.
In that lineup with Baltimore, he's maybe the forgotten guy, but super young. He's proven he's like just a good bat on ball guy. He just squares it up when I've seen him, and he can hit some bombs. And maybe if he's getting more strikes because the other parts of that lineup got stronger, then I think he's gonna settle in and have a really nice season. I don't think right now that's his starter, which is even more interesting. But I my concern is you said that's what I love, but I'll tell you what I didn't like, and that's Devin Williams because I'm pretty positive he won't have that job. It's too long of a period of time. Like they have to move on at this point for that decision, unless they're really going to go with a committee until then. But then by then they'll decide like, oh, that's working for us. So they're not all of a sudden going to bring in Devin Williams to be the guy. But you know, you never know. It could happen.
Yeah.
It seems to not happen with relievers the way you need a starter to come back.
Right. Right. We have seen guys lose their job because of injury before. And who knows, maybe he comes back, he gets the job for a little bit and then they trade him because the committee was working or one of the guys in the committee was better than him.
And look, the Ginkle pick also. Ginkle pairs with Paul Sewald. I really think it's genius how he built his bullpen. I really do.
Good job, Josh. Good job. All right, Benjamin, it's time. It's time to discuss your team. You were betting in the 3-hole this evening yesterday. You got Juan Soto, Luis Arraez, Nolan Arenado, Will Smith, and Brandon Nimmo. I'm going to go ahead and reenact exactly what it was that happened as his pick came up in the 5th round. He was like one of these, just hoping and hoping, and then I heard a very loud yes, as in fact he got Brandon Nimmo in the 5th. Benji, walk us through this one. You were you were really excited for these 5.
Yeah, the one part of the reenactment you didn't get was I smashed our cushion really hard before I screamed.
Mm-hmm.
So I these were the 5 guys that I was targeting. My goal was to indeed run it back from last year. I felt like a core of this group is the reason I was where I was last year. So maybe a little tweaks here and there to it, but essentially, this group has the potential to be a playoff team in our league. So if they can do it one year, fair chance that this group can do it again, provided that they stay healthy.
Jason, what'd you think of these top 5?
Yeah, I love them. They're definitely what I would call Ben picks, which is great. I love Brandon Nimmo in the 5th round. Like, I I had thoughts of doing him, picking him in the 4th, but it was just too early. Top of the 4th round, but getting Will Smith in the 4th round, like that steals up your catcher position, and you have your batting champ at number 2. Like, and I mean Juan Soto, at number 3 was kind of the obvious choice, but also like he's gonna ball out at Yankee Stadium. So no, these are 5 terrific picks.
Juan Soto at 3 was in fact where I wished I was. I have to admit, I was hoping to be the 3rd pick so I could either have Betts or Soto or Acuna, one of those 3. And you ended up getting that spot, and I think you slam dunked it. I absolutely think you slam dunked the first 5 picks in this draft.
Thank you.
The only one that I would say, hey, maybe you went a bit early, but you were going to get your guy regardless, is Luis Arraez. I think you could have waited a little bit on him. But you know what? Go get the batting champion in the 2nd round if you really believe that this versatile dude.
I hear you. It's for me. I guess I'm feeling like it's hard for me to believe that a guy that's been the batting champion 2 years in a row is going to go that far. So like the consistency is so there for me that I could care less at that point because yeah, it could have even been third round because I was third. So I'm only waiting for Jimmy and Josh to pick. But that's where I felt like his value is. He's at least a second rounder with his accolades at this point.
Yeah, I can agree. There's no argument against it. It's just a matter of like I think you might have been able to wait at least until the third, but I can understand saying like I have to get this guy at this turn because he's not going
Right.
to come back to me at the 4-5. Yeah.
Yeah.
6 through 10, Max Muncy, Adbert Alzolay, Carlos Esteves, Alex Lang, Kyle Finnegan, and I'll lump the 11th pick in here, Steven Wilson. There's the bullpen, boys, and that's 5 probably closers. Like probably closers. Jason, back me up on this. How you feel about this? This is 5 probably the guys.
Yeah, I think Alzolay is definitely the guy in Chicago, and I love that pick, Ben. I think he's gonna have a really nice season for the Cubs. Um, Alex Lang, I think he's the guy in Detroit. I think Kyle Finnegan is the guy in Washington for what that's worth. Estevez, we'll see. I know Robert Stevenson's banged up, and but he was kind of also going to be in that committee, so we'll see how that plays out. And Steven Wilson, this trade, kind of vaults him into closer territory, which he'd never done before. So, we'll see how that turns out. But I love it. You just stealed your bullpen right then and there. That's awesome.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
I
with
thought
Max Muncy, a 30 homer guy. Like absolutely fantastic, sir.
right. On the bullpen, like I thought that Estevez looked good just because he had 31 saves last year. So
Yeah.
I thought that that should at least give him he's the first look at it in that situation. But in general, it felt like these are at least the guys that are the front runners. Take a shot at a few of them while they're still there,
Yeah.
because and as the third pick, also there is a good amount of picks that go. So like, let me just try to get all of the front runners basically that I can,
Mhm.
and we'll see. A lot of them are coin flips, but I got a bunch of them, so I feel like at least there's a good chance a couple of them work out at this point.
No
And
doubt.
yeah, the one difference really with the team basically from last year as far as the offense go, just one new recruit, Max Muncy. Not necessarily my kind of guy, like a good amount of strikeouts, but you add Otani in that lineup. If Gavin Lux can bring something too, another year of Outman, this is one of the most impressive lineups. Max Muncy, with his ability to get into full counts, I think he should have a really good year, provided like mentally he's prepared that he's going to be put on the stage a lot, much like Will Smith. Like these are the guys that are maybe not going to get walked as much because there's so much danger in front of them, but they're going to have a lot of opportunities to just pass the baton. Just another walk, whatever it's necessarily needs to do to just move over to get another run. Another guy's maybe going to get a ground out and 0 for 1 just because he's moving the runner over and they're just going to collect runs. But it should be a well oiled machine there. So, although it's different for me with Muncy, with his batting average, his strikeouts, the potential, he's got the pop when he has the confidence. He should be able to be a good, strong utility guy for me, or arguably maybe if Nolan is hurt or you never know with him. He kind of went and he broke down at the end of the year. So there's my third baseman just in case something like that happens.
I think pairing Max Muncy and Will Smith was brilliant. I also think pairing Max Muncy with Luis Arise
Yes.
mitigates the low batting average you're going to get out of Max Muncy. I think it's
Right.
smart all the way around. 12 through 16, I'll lump these guys together because this is the Ben Nisman portion of the draft. It's Carlos Santana, Charlie Blackmon, James MacArthur is another reliever, Justin Lawrence, the closer in Colorado, and Jeff McNeil. Benji, if you had told me that all 5 of these guys would have been on your team, I would have absolutely believed you. And to see them go in order was amazing.
Thank you. Obviously, the Carlos Santana and Charlie Blackmon picks right there. Those are the ones that I'm thinking these really are guys that will probably hang around later. But what if I'm wrong? Like, what if someone sees the stats that Carlos Santana put up last year? And Carlos Santana was solid when he played. And I think he really benefited from the fact that there's no shift anymore. He seems like one of those guys, and he bats better from the left hand side against righties. So I truly believed in him. Coley Blackman, his strikeout ratio is pretty solid as well. You wouldn't believe it. He did have the injury. I went for guys that I've seen play baseball long enough that I don't really care that they're 36 or 37 years old. If they're having the opportunity, Carlos Santana is arguably the cleanup hitter or number 3 or number 5 hitter in Minnesota with Correa. There's obviously that Minnesota lineup is getting deeper now. Obviously, Jason loves a portion of it. And I was satisfied with the fact that I could get those two guys to fill two spots that are starters for me. It worked enough last year. They really did. So I'm going to give them all another chance. I'm running it back all the way. McNeil, same thing. McNeil was a batting champion 2 years ago. There's a good amount of Mets fans in our league. Like, there's a chance that someone just thinks, it's another anomaly year. He has a good year, he has a bad year. Let me just get him. He plays 3 positions and he doesn't strike out really. He basically almost never strikes out as far as the average player.
Charlie Blackmon, 55 strikeouts in 96 games last year. Carlos Santana had 23 home runs and 86 RBIs across 2 different rosters last year. Talk about some value late in the draft. Ben Nisman knows how to mine for that good stuff.
Thank you.
James MacArthur, you took him from me. I didn't think I was gonna. It was too early for me to take him at the top of the 14th round, and I really, really thought he would wait. He would hang around one more round, and you grabbed him from me.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Because I think he is going to be the closer in Kansas City. I know they picked up Will Smith, who may start the year off as their closer, but he's going to be traded by July. I think James MacArthur is the guy there, and I like this Royals team. I really, really was eyeing him.
Okay, wow, that's great. Because, like, honestly, there was a point where I had accepted that he wasn't going to come back to me because of those other group of closers that I got. Like, once I got Finnegan and Wilson, then I was thinking there's not too many front runners left. And then I was like, Kansas City, Colorado, check, check. That should clear them, And that was basically the last front runner.
You taking them was the prelude for me taking Brian Abreu, because those were the last of the sure front runners for a closer, and I was like, I need a reliever, so Abreu is it. I was really banking on MacArthur being around or either of them being around for one more round.
Those two guys, those two closers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Finishing up the draft 17 through 26, Benjamin. Finally, we're going to talk about some starting pitchers if you haven't had the opportunity to do that yet, because you didn't take one until the 17th round in Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty, Taijuan Walker, Ezekiel Tovar in the 19th, Miles Michaelis, Ryan Yarbrough, Pedro Avila, Gavin Lux in the 23rd, Randall Grichuk in the 24th, Ryan Brazier, and Alex Vesia, 2 LA Dodger relievers in the 25th and 26th. You'll notice a bunch of dudes from LA and San Diego at the back end of this draft. I assume that was by design.
Yes, absolutely. My thought was this is a long, long matchup, 13 days technically of decisions that you got to consider, and 10 ads now. I didn't necessarily want to be using them to get relief appearances. So let me add some relief pitchers that have a good chance of going in those 2 days, and then they'll be healthy enough for opening day. I don't need to necessarily shed them immediately. There's still Dodgers pitchers, some SP eligibility. I think I got a good mix of everything here on what I needed to do, at least to potentially give myself a little bit of a head start in my first matchup.
The 4 starters look like Jack Flaherty, Taijuan Walker, Miles Michaelis, and Ryan Yarbrough. So Walker and Michaelis are back for a second season to try to eat some innings for you. Jack Flaherty's the newcomer, and Ryan Yarbrough is kind of a wild card. I'm pretty sure he's going to be sort of a swingman relief pitcher type guy. Not necessarily something that you're going to have to address immediately because the long week exists and you don't have to worry about getting to the 42 as difficult as a 7-day matchup. So I'm assuming you're going to add another starter at some point, perhaps use an ad on a stream type guy for the second week. But for right now, your rotation is locked in with Flaherty, Walker, and Michaelis. Jason, how do you feel about those three?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Those are three quality guys to get at the back end of the draft to fill out to be rotation. And meanwhile, you killed you killed it the rest of the draft. So yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant. Nothing wrong with it. I think Flaherty is a good bounce back candidate in Detroit. Timo Walker, he's steady. He's not great, but he's gonna win ball games in Philadelphia. He's a ground ball pitcher, so he doesn't give up a whole lot of home runs even in that small ballpark. And Michael is also, he's gonna be out there every fifth day. So yeah, I
200 innings last year. He was terrible, but it's 200 innings,
yeah.
and
So this is
sometimes you just need guys that are gritty.
yeah, and that's exactly what you got here, and you knew what you were doing. So yeah, it's vintage Ben to me.
Thank you.
Were there any pitchers you missed out on because you waited this long? Was there anybody that you were
Yes.
targeting or missed out on?
Yes, of course, Kenta Maeda was one guy that I would have liked to see later on, but you got him. Um, I I was actually at a certain point thinking, how much longer should I let Garrett Cole go? So those are two, Joe, that I think you did very, very well on.
Thank you, sir.
But yeah, I think it was mentioned in the first show that Clark Schmidt was someone that I was eyeing as well that disappeared on me. So yeah, there were a couple for sure. But I'm thinking there's a 1,000% chance that there is going to be a good amount of guys that are just dropped because they have poor outings a few times in a row. Someone doesn't believe in them anymore, and there's a lot more baseball. They're going to continue to get the ball. That's basically how I played the game as far as 2021 when I had Flexen and Tyon and Maeda and Freed as my group.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at last year. It was Ranger Suarez and Nestor Cortez didn't even play, and Mikolas and Maeda and Merrill Kelly. You know what I mean? They don't jump out at you.
No,
but they eat.
Yeah, they eat. And then the fact of the matter is that if the offense does what it's supposed to do, what's on the back of the baseball card, it should be consistent in all the different stats, except for steals. It's not a really fast team. But I could add that. The thing is, if you add that thing, and I'm always wondering, but you're sacrificing something else, then you're just taking a coin flip, Like maybe it's a player that's going to potentially lose you in errors, and you just know there's a chance that that's one stat you just could potentially lose because the guy is bad in that stat. Now, would you take the steals over that on another team that is a fast team? Then you're just not sure, right? If it's worth it. So it's tough. Like right now, I think the defense is one of my favorite things that's overlooked about the team. The fact that I have Nimmo, that's a center fielder, but he's going to play left field. That's something that's safe. Nolan Arenado, Arrive really good. Hovar had 7 errors, and he played in 500. He had 581 at bats. So, like, I think that he's a pretty stable shortstop. Not to mention, like, a Colorado guy. So I felt like I got a decent guy.
he can run too. He stole as many as 24 bases in the minor leagues. He's gonna run. I think he can steal you 15, 20 bases.
Maybe he's not gonna put up the kind of production than like someone like a CJ Abrams, right? That I had last year. CJ Abrams had 22 errors last year. That's good for a matchup. So there's a good chance that maybe he gave you like 2 or 3 in a week and you just like lose that stat. Is that good for his 47 stolen bases? It's a tough game to play because you don't know when you're going to need them. So it's a very tough call there. But I think Tovar, I'm not really expecting the stolen bases. I'm expecting good defense and to play good when he's in Colorado. Other than that, like I'm not really that concerned. And Gavin Lux to me, I thought was like a really interesting back of the end on this guy's supposed to be really good, and I think he's going to get an opportunity in the Dodgers lineup. Now I have 3 out of 9 in the Dodgers lineup. So I felt like I got a good mix of things that I expect to be good based on their situations, and then what they did last year for me. So I try to run it back the best as I could. And that's really what I was hoping could happen. And I remember just thinking, God, I don't expect to get all five of the first five. Just give me three or four of all five. And then when I saw third pick, I said, wow, this actually could happen. Because when you're at that point that you can get most of the guys that you want because you're not in the middle. There's not that like unsureness of like, you can shore up your guys. Like, even though you could say, Jason, at 16th pick, at least you get your favorites of that bunch. Like right there, you're like, let me get my favorite of that. So like now it's gone, whatever. So like I do like my players each time I'm doing it, two in a row, your favorites, right?
Yeah.
Favorite pick of the draft for Benjamin, Jason? What do you have here?
Man, I love the Alzolay pick. I had him. I had a taste of him last year, and I traded him away too fast, and Casas reaped the benefits of that. I like the Cubs. I think he's the guy. I don't think they really have anybody that's really going to. Julian Merriweather is not a closer. Mark Leiter is not a closer. He is the guy, and I love that in the 7th round.
Okay.
Good job,
And what's
Benji.
your second your second favorite out of curiosity?
Uh, probably. Probably MacArthur. I don't know. It's the way you built this bullpen, and I think having MacArthur just out of my reach really changed my draft. So I think that's a great pick for you. I'm envious of you.
Thank you.
I like Jack Flaherty as the ace in the 17th round. Like past
Yeah.
250, you still got a dude that, yeah, maybe we're all still chasing the 2019 Dragon that we saw in the second half, but he's not as bad as we saw last year. So he's going to return some good value for you there.
Yeah, that's a great call.
Thank you.
Good job, Benji. What about you? What's your
Thank you
favorite?
very much. It's just the fact that I can't say it's all of it. Like I really was just so happy with that getting everything that I was hoping, like the whole plan worked out. And I just think it was because like we were all in our own thoughts. We all had our own things that we had to do at that time. So I was just hitter, my six favorite hitters, but the fact that I was able to get them all and no one had the same thoughts as me, it just made it like perfect for me. I was so happy with it. There are some times where I was thinking like, maybe Tovar won't bring it. I guess my shortstop could be a weak position. But then I'm also thinking, if he's supposed to be my ninth best player in the lineup, you can live with him being okay, and maybe then all of a sudden he becomes like the seventh best hitter. I can live with him for a little bit, especially since he's playing in Colorado for half the games.
I think he'll
Oh,
be.
yeah.
I think you'll be pleased with the return.
Wow. Okay.
All right. The only rookie this year is, in fact, Cody Piot, and let's jump to his team here. 4th overall, Carroll of Monkeys, and he gets Corbin Carroll at the 4 spot. 2nd round, he gets Gunnar Henderson, Michael Harris in the 3rd, Aaron Nola in the 4th, Camilo Doval in the 5th. Nice round, solid start to the draft. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I love it. I think Corbin Carroll is easily a great number 4 pick. You can make the case that like a guy like Judge or Freeman maybe goes first, but I have no problem with Corbin Carroll going 4th overall with the triple eligibility, the 40-40 possibility. Like like he is a star. And to pair that with Gunnar Henderson in the 2nd round is wonderful. And then in the back half of that, you still get your ace and your ace closer in Nola and Doval. Yeah, it's a really great grouping there.
Ben, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I do actually. I think that having the two rookie of the years as your first and second, it feels pretty safe that at least one of them can be an absolute star if they're not already. And 5 positions, that gets all outfields from Corbin Carroll, and then the left half of the infield for Gunnar Henderson. That's already storing up a lot of versatility in your first 2 picks and potential stars. Guys that I personally don't go for because it's now sophomore seasons and I like to see a body of work. But these guys are projected for what it's worth to have similar numbers than they have. So I don't blame them.
6 through 10, we've got Brian Reynolds, then Ketel Marte in the 7th, Cole Reagans in the 8th, Tanner Scott in the 9th, and Vinny P, baby, and Vinny Pasquantino in the 10th round. Jason, what'd you like here?
I love Ketel Marte. I think that's a great pick. Second base is kind of a, we talked about it in the second base show, is kind of a weird position, and I think shoring that up in the 7th round is great. I love that. The rest of it, I like Brian Reynolds too, but the rest of it, I'm a little suspect about. Tanner Scott is all right because he has Doval. Like if Tanner Scott was his closer, I'd be a little worried, but having Doval there too makes it okay.
Cole Reagans is the SP2. You also had a question there. Is that?
Yeah. I know he was really, he was like everybody was in love with him last year. I he may be good. I feel like 8th round may have been a little bit of reach for him. I don't think I would have taken him in the 8th round, but he could come back and be, a solid ace. So like it's like the Royce Lewis pick for me. Like this could be a complete bust, or this could be like, wow, you got this guy in the 8th round. That's awesome.
Big time risk in the 8th round. Ben, you feeling the same way with that cat?
Not necessarily. Having a starting an SP eligible reliever that could come back, and if he comes back and he crashes the party, maybe that James MacArthur pick is not so good. I didn't hate it. I think it's super early. Like I don't think that's anybody's target at that point. But I love that on the fifth round, he goes and gets Duvall, like a sort guy, like in the fifth, when started in the fourth, all the run, you get one of that surefire guys in the fifth round. Thought that was a perfect time to get your first closer. And I know I've seen enough of Brian Reynolds now to say like this guy is legit like star. Like this guy is an amazing baseball player. It does not matter that he's playing for the Pirates. He actually makes the guys around him better. So yeah, I love that pick as well. I'm not sure if he is better than an Eloy Jimenez or a Teoscar or a George Springer. Like a lot of these outfielders, to me, you can do a coin flip with. Like I don't know necessarily who's going to be the biggest star, or Santander. I mean, there's so many at this point. So if that's the guy that he believes in there, I love that pick. I love most of this. I do think the Cole Reagans one might have been a little bit early. But then, boom, Tanner Scott. There's a guy that you're just like, okay, another closer. So
Mhm.
he shores it up. He shores it up. And I felt like the whole time he was just covering himself quite a bit in this draft. And I respected the fact that he was in line with what was still available to him at certain times.
11 through 15, he sure does shore up this rotation. Jordan Montgomery without a job, Mitch Keller, Isaac Paredes, Gabriel Moreno, and then goes Ryan Pepio, another RP eligible starter, which is much like what Cole Reagan is doing here. Jason, what'd you like and what'd you see here in these 5 rounds?
Yeah, the Montgomery pick is interesting because, like you said, he is currently unemployed. But once he's employed, like if he can get onto even a decent team, I think he's not going to need much ramp up. Even if he's out the first month to ramp up, there's a guy who can he can throw 170 innings and give you a 3 ERA. Like he is a solid number two once he's around. But until then, you have Mitch Keller, who is like 2A. So I like that pairing. And the Moreno pick, I think he's a little banged up. I don't know what his injury is, but I know he's banged up. But yeah, getting him in the 14th round, I think if he's healthy and he's productive, that's a steal.
It is interesting the number of pitchers that went between the pick of Jordan Montgomery and Mitch Keller. We saw Bryce Miller, we saw Bailey Ober, Justin Verlander, Hunter Green, and Hunter Brown go off the board between those two starter picks. I don't know that Montgomery would have stuck around in that period of time either.
Right.
So I think he got what he needed in that. He got the guy at the right time, is what I'm saying. Ben, what did you see here in these 5 rounds?
Isaac Paredes, great value. I think the versatility there. I mean, if the Rays lineup can do what you could expect them to do. Maybe they're not the same because the actual phenom in their lineup can't play baseball anymore. So now you have this guy potentially being the star with Yandy. That could work. I think it could work. So I have no problem with that, especially you can plug him in if there are injuries, if there are days off. The fact that he can play three positions is great. That's my favorite one of this group.
16 through 26, Brian Bayo of the Boston Red Sox at 253 in the 16th round. AJ Minter, Carlos Correa, much to the chagrin of my co-host. Michael Waka, again, much to the chagrin of my co-host. Wandy Peralta, Brandon Drury, Danny Columby, Matt Wallner, Reed Detmers, Phil Maton, and finished the draft out with Clayton Kershaw. Benji, you're my co-host that I was talking about, much to the chagrin of Carlos Correa and Michael Waka. You liked these two picks, didn't you?
Yeah, I would. I'll start in the order that I didn't like it as much. Michael Walker, another guy that stood on my rotation from last year. So yeah, but again, it's a guy that you know he could be fine, but what kind of year are you going to get out of Michael Walker? There's been some consistency, but I didn't love him in that ballpark. Well, I mean, I realize it's a pitcher's ballpark, but with that team, it's still a team that I'm not necessarily as comfortable with. I get, if you feel like he can do it, but it's same as, there's a lot of guys that I was just like, they're not in the right situation. Like, I'd rather take a chance on someone on the Yankees who's, like a Clark Schmidt, even though he could get rattled a couple of times just because there's so much run production. Um, Carlos Correa was the one that got me pretty badly, because I was ready to pick my shortstop, and I was thinking, like, could I really get Carlos Correa in there right now? He got picked. Then I went with Tovar. So I was waiting to ask this question to Jason. Which one do you like better?
Um, I like them both. I think getting Correa in the 18th round is such a value. Like I know everybody is down on him. I think if he's healthy, he is still a stud. And to get him in the 18th round, like when nobody's even thinking about shortstops for the most part, like I think that's awesome. But I do think that Tovar has a little more upside. He's younger, plays in a better ballpark, and there's no expectations. So I think like that's why I think he's gonna run more. I think he'll be okay. But getting Correa in the 18th round is just
Yeah.
incredible.
I, the thing is, like, for me, Correa, he's not even 30. So it's like Tovar being younger to me is relative because I think like Correa is going to get bigger and stronger. So I seemed like a really good guy to have. I mean, if he's going to start for him, and if that Twins lineup again, you have high expectations for it.
Mhm.
I do to an extent with Carlos Santana. Joe does with Julian. So we're all kind of banking on this lineup together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what kind of world are we living in where Clayton Kershaw gets picked in the 26th round of the draft? Like that's just like I get it and it makes sense, but it really goes, wow, Clayton Kershaw goes in the last round of the draft.
Yeah, but to me, it's just thinking like you're gonna plug one of your IL spots
Oh
right
yeah.
away.
Yeah, for sure. But it just
Mhm.
I don't know, it made me kind of smirk. And I love the pick of Reed Detmers in round 24. I know the Angels are going to be terrible, but this kid, he's young enough. He's a flamethrower. He's going to strike guys out. I love this pick in round
Yeah,
24.
you like that guy. Yeah.
I do.
I had Brian Bayo lined up as well, so I liked that pick as well.
Yeah.
Overall, on the whole, Ben Nisman, how do you think this rookie did in his first draft?
Pretty solid. It seems fairly balanced. He's waiting on some things to happen, but I think it should be able to compete. It's what he does with it and what he does day to day with his 10 ads. That's really what it's going to come down to. But as far as the foundation, he's kind of covered his barriers quite a bit, and I think it should be fine. We're just going to have to see how it all unfolds. It really depends on who he's facing on the day.
Agreed. Cody, great job. Thank you for joining this great league. Thank you for having a great
Yes,
draft right
thank
there
you.
alongside of us. Thank you for being here all 3 hours of the draft. We appreciate that as well.
Yes.
Not all new people come in and take that undertaking as
Yeah.
quickly as you did. So we appreciate you, my friend. We're going to move on to the Atom Bomb, and I feel very, very silly because I don't know who that is at the moment.
It's Adam.
That's Adam Lowenstein, the Atom Bomb.
Yeah.
I love
All
that.
right. So he starts off in the 5 position and goes Freddie Freeman, Jose Altuve, Bo Bichette, Kevin Gossman, Raisel Iglesias. We're seeing a nice little round action here as well as we get a starter, a reliever, and 3 bats. Benji, what do you love about this?
It's a great start to his infields. I mean, right away, it's just like first best hitter I like, second best hitter I like, third best hitter I like. And I thought that was just great because again, if these guys play to the back of their baseball cards, I realize Bichette, like he's not. You wonder why he's not really a speedy guy, but he's not. He doesn't steal bases. But who cares? Like if he can do what he can, if he's batting near Guerrero, that's a great guy to have in the 3rd round. And your shortstop, he's really good defensively. Jose Altuve, obviously. I wondered how, like, what round is appropriate for Jose Altuve. Obviously, he only got to play that last part of the season, but of course his accolades and then Freddie, yeah. Thank God, like he went for this instead of like because this would have been tough, right? If he didn't, because this is Adam's 2nd draft, right? He's an original member in '05, and then he returned 18 years later, right? Last year. So now this is basically his 2nd draft in a while. His 1st round could have been a tough one, and he went with Freddie.
I think he got it right. Jason?
Yeah. The one thing I was curious, and I'd love to get your guys' opinion. He took Kevin Gossman over Aaron Nola. What? Because Aaron Nola went right after him. Is that right?
I take Gossman.
Because
No, why not? Why not? I have no idea.
There's a shoulder issue. They say he's okay, but like I don't know. That's just that to me. That I mentioned it on the starting pitching show. It's a red flag for me when a pitcher has a shoulder problem.
Yeah,
So
I get it. I get it.
that and when that's your number one, it's just it's a red flag a little bit. But otherwise, I love this. As Ben said, I think having Altuve and Bichette as your middle infielders is as solid as it can get. And Iglesias is the closer for one of the best teams in baseball. So yeah,
Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah,
Agreed.
yeah, absolutely. Getting a closer in the first 5 that's a short fire guy, I think is outstanding value based on the trend of the last 6 years or so, where they were going in the 3rd or 4th round,
yeah.
and now to finally like still be able to get someone in the 5th that is the guy that has the job. Great job. Great job.
Absolutely. Strong work, Adam. 6 through 10, we get Grayson Rodriguez, William Contreras, Estieri Ruiz in the 8th, Joe Musgrove, and Riley Green in the 10th. Ben, what do you like about this one?
Joe Musgrove and Riley Green, that 9th and 10th. I mean, Riley Green has tremendous upside. Was a little bummed. It was the guy that I wasn't necessarily just targeting because that was like when I was going on my closer fixation. So I was like, that's the guy that, yeah, he could be great, but who knows? There's been some injury issues in the past. But Musgrove in the 9th round, what he could potentially bring, these are if healthy guys, but based on what I can see, they're ready to go. So I love the value for those 2.
I was
Go ahead, Jason.
No, I was sitting in the draft looking at Musgrove, and he's just sitting there, and I'm like, is there something I'm not like? Is there something I'm missing? So I took Bassett in the 8th round. I could have had Musgrove, and I'm like, is there something that I'm missing? Like why is Musgrove just sitting there? So I let him go, and I was like, if he's still there at the 9th, I'm gonna take him. And sure enough, Adam takes him, and so I end up with Christian Javier, which I'm fine with. But I'm like, what's wrong with Musgrove? Why is he still sitting here?
Yeah. Yeah, Musgrove goes off before guys like Cole Reagans and Shane Bieber and Michael King and Walker
Garrett Cole.
And Garrett, no, not quite. I took Garrett Cole in the 10th round, sir.
Yeah.
He went off. He went off before Garrett Cole. Yeah.
Oh, he went off. Yeah, he went off before Garrett Cole.
Before Garrett Cole, you're right. Before guys like Shota, he goes off after all those names I mentioned: Bassett, Bueller, Michael King, Shane Bieber, Cole Reagans. Those are the guys that lead up to the Joe Musgrove pick. And then,
Yeah.
big
I
names
feel like
after.
a lot of that, Jason, I feel like a lot of that also is just the timing of what a team is looking to get at that particular time. So they're not necessarily on top of starting pitching at that point. That's kind of what I noticed. That someone was just like Josh Haber at one point picked two closers in a row,
Right.
right? It was Stewald and someone else, but
Jansen.
it was just like
Jansen.
and Jansen, right? It was just like two surefire guys. Then it's got to be something else from now on. You know, the, the the realization of saying like you can't afford in your mind to go for a starting pitcher at that particular round, or he probably should be gotten at that point. It's just circumstantial a lot of the time.
I want to give credit to the William Contreras pick. He was my catcher last year, and he absolutely was fantastic. Seventh round at 100, nice pick. I like it right there. Jason, I know you were pretty big on Grayson Rodriguez. How do you feel
Yes,
about
I was
that
just
going
going
off?
there. I love that pick as well. I couldn't get myself to do it. In the fifth. So I love him there in the sixth. I think that's a great spot for him.
Yep. 11 through 16, we go the namesake Alec Boehm, Hunter Brown, Hunter Harvey, Nick Pivetta, and Aroldis Chapman. He sniped me on Aroldis Chapman and Nick Pivetta both times. I had that guy lined up each time, and there he goes. So disappointing from my end, but good picks for Adam nonetheless. Good job there. Jason, what do you like in this five group of guys?
He shorts up the bullpen with Chapman and Hunter Harvey. Look, there's no one saying that Kyle Finnegan is the guy in Washington. No one's saying that Hunter Harvey. They're going to be co-closers until someone gets hurt anyway. So like to pair all that with Iglesias, I love that bullpen.
Ben, your thoughts?
My favorite out of the group is probably the namesake. In that Philly lineup, we know how high on it you are, Joe. I
Mhm.
mean, that's just another guy, former rookie of the year, nice comeback year last year. He's got good power. I think he's got really good concentration. I think he's pretty clutch. I think he's a solid player. Not my favorite defensive player necessarily, but in general, I think this is a really, really good pick here at this point of the draft. Hunter Brown, like a Houston Astros thrower, like that's
Mhm.
do it. You know, that's a smart pick there, part of that rotation. And then, yeah, I'm a little annoyed. Hunter Harvey, I couldn't get to him. Had other plans as far as closers go. I thought that Kyle Finnegan should get more of the opportunities. Didn't feel like getting the other guy there, but amazing job by him to get it. Just in general, these groups of picks, like Nick Pivetta, yeah, like they have high hopes for him in Boston. I love that he can be, if you maybe need it, you can put him in the RP. That's fine.
Yep.
So yeah, I hate Chapman. I mean, I would never ever roster him. I don't care about the relief appearance unless, yeah, maybe if I have like everything else for like home runs given up isn't tied with, especially isn't like near each other, and I need the relief appearance, I go for Chapman. Otherwise, like Chapman is awful. Like I don't see Chapman ever go through a 1, 2, 3 inning. It just doesn't happen anymore. He's too erratic for me. I think he's a terrible pitcher at this point, and he's useless. And you know, not to mention there's a ton of mileage on the arm. But
Oh yeah.
other than that, everything before it, brilliant, brilliant.
Yep. 16 through 26. Jake Fraley in the 16th. Aaron Savale, I really like that pick in the 17th round. Logan O'Hoppe is his catcher in the 18th. Orion Keckering in the 19th round. Yusei Kikuchi in the 20th. Willie Castro, Ahmed Rosario, Tom Cosgrove, Wade Miley, Mark Canna, and Lucas Sims still gets rostered in this league in 2024. Mike Haber is loving that. Lucas Sims in the 26th round. Jason, do you love that pick as much as I love the Aaron Savali pick?
I love the Kirkering pick. In fact, I had him queued up and he sniped him right out in front of me. Because I think Jose Alvarado is the closer right now in Philadelphia, but that's no sure thing. And everybody's raving about this kid. I don't know much about him. He pitched well in the playoffs last year. They're going to give him a shot. In the 19th round, that's a great spot for him. I love that. Logan O'Hoppe, I had him last year, and then he tore his labrum, and there went that. But you pair him with Contreras, you have two catchers, and two quality starting catchers. I love that as well.
Yeah, two quality starting catchers, one of the best in the game, and then one of the most up-and-coming guys in the game. So be interesting to see what he does there as far as playing those two guys back and forth when both are in the lineup. But that's a nice issue to have to work yourself through. Benny, what do you see in this group that you like?
Well, I honestly I do like Logan O'Hoppe there at the 18th round. That was one that I figured Jason would be very high on because that was a guy that he was always very high on. But the thing is, I feel like if you already have selected your catcher, I do have that problem of having like two real starting guys there, and one is just going to be on the bench when, in general, I mean, Contreras is a healthy enough guy that he's gonna young enough guy that he's gonna be out there. It's not like Wilson, right? So
Yeah, no, this is the guy who's going to play just about every single day.
right. So that one is just unless you have a surplus and maybe someone has the interest in a catcher, even if you are going to be say, okay, make Ohapi the leading guy, make him be the starter, and then trade Contreras because he
Mhm.
has higher value. That's one way you can do it. But I
Yeah.
think that might be a tricky situation there. Um, Everything else, Kikuchi on the in the right situation, potentially very, very good.
Mhm.
Kirkering, from my understanding, this guy was going to be potentially a rotation piece. Either way, if he actually does pull off getting the closer job, that would be amazing. But I don't know. And then Strom, obviously, Frank grabbed him. I thought that was right. I'm pretty sure Frank has Strom.
Mhm.
So I thought that was really nice to have like the SP eligible guy that could be the guy as well. Like if Alvarado, they decide that Alvarado is just your high leverage guy. Like anytime we need big outs, this is the time, whether it's the seventh, eighth, or ninth, like that's when to use Alvarado. Not exactly sure how Thompson is going to do it. So we're going to have to see. But I think in general, like a couple of solid, like diamonds in the rough that he grabbed.
Yeah, I think the back end is what one would call boring but safe.
Yeah.
It's Mark Canna, Ahmed Rosario, Willie Castro, all of those guys are pretty safe but boring plays that could fill out your roster.
I
Jason?
think
Yeah.
Willie Castro to me is a fun piece because I think he is the Twins version of like a Mauricio Dubon, who somebody on this Twins lineup is going to get hurt. They are filled with injury plagued guys, and this guy can plug in anywhere. So like, as soon as Buxton gets hurt, as soon as Correa gets hurt, as soon as Kepler gets hurt, he's going to play. So he can do a lot of things. So I like that pick at 21.
Yep.
Yeah. I just the bench to me like Willie Castro, Ahmed Rosario, and Mark Canha. Like I feel like if you looked around our league, everyone's benches seem on paper stronger than those three guys.
Yeah. I think so too. I think they're again boring, weak, safe options with multiple position eligibility that you can plug anywhere, and that's what Adam is going for here with this bench. I think he's got a lot of dudes that he's counting on in the lineup that I don't that he doesn't that he certainly hopes doesn't need replacing at some point during the season. But he's got enough guys here that'll cover all of his bases if need be.
Yeah. Yeah, and right now there's so many Cincinnati hitters. I mean, I'm bringing up Jake Fraley. I'm thinking like there's so many guys, and I really don't know who's the best one between Spear and McLean and Fraley and Friedel and De La Cruz. Like, I have no idea at this point. Like, get one of them. There's a good chance maybe
Yeah.
he's good.
Yeah, the ballpark certainly plays well enough, and as long as you've got one guy, you've got a chance at it. Adam, thank you so much for another great season. We can't wait to see what you do in the year. Let's move on to the reigning and defending World Heavyweight Bigs Champion of 2023. Albie's there for you, Michael Haber. Good name. Good name.
Right?
Yeah.
No, excellent team name. That got me also. Like, I, I first read Jason's thing because we were going over Costas' schedule. And I was just like laughing one after the other. These team names are unstoppable this year so far.
Yeah, I love him.
Mike Haber starts his draft off with Aaron Judge, then goes Ozzy Albies, Luis Castillo, Emmanuel Clase, and Christian Walker. Interesting start. He doesn't go the three hitters and then the pitcher and the reliever. He instead moves that up around to get a higher class of starting pitcher and reliever. Jason, do you think that he succeeded here in sort of trumping the field?
Yeah, yeah. I think having Castillo as your number one and Clase as your number one closer, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Especially when you've gotten look, I'm very happy that Aaron Judge ended up on a Yankee fan team. Like I think that works. I think that's like a marriage that like, Mike Haber and Aaron Judge, that just seems right to me. Um and then getting Albies, yeah, I think having those two start off and then you still get Castillo and Clase. Like, yeah, that's great.
Benny, you're nodding your head. I think you agree here that this is a pretty damn strong start.
Yes, the only one I'm actually a little bit like, huh, is Luis Castillo. Because we've all seen the good and the bad of Luis
Yeah.
Castillo, and he's been consistent lately. But he's like one of those guys to me that's like almost like a Freddie Garcia. Like you're not necessarily sure what he's going to bring, at least for me. Although, again, lately, extremely consistent,
Yeah, the
Um,
questions that we had were when he was in Cincinnati in that terrible ballpark. And now that he's moved to a good ballpark in Seattle, he's been consistently good. I think
right.
that
And
we've seen the worst of him, and now
yeah,
we're seeing what he can be.
possibly. I mean, I guess, and maybe it's also because he came from that same place, like Johnny Cueto, right?
Mhm.
And then Johnny Cueto, like, kind of figured there was good years in San Francisco, whatever. But I guess I kind of relate them the same way. I mean, I don't think, and I'm not trying to like insult the pick or even the player, but like he's he's not Felix Hernandez, right? Like
Okay.
he's he's a nice guy, but like I think Rodon or Luis Castillo at their best, they could be doing the same thing, right? Like because just because we've seen Rodon at his best, it's just an example. But I'm just saying,
Mhm.
like we've seen some of these guys, like when Jack Flaherty is an example in 2019, there was a guy who was just like, oh my God, this guy's ridiculous. So the thing with Luis Castillo that I think was great about the pick is his consistency. Like lately, we've seen a lot of Luis Castillo that he can be there. And if you believe in that offense, and of course, the fact that they're in that ballpark, it's a nice guy to have out of the arguably maybe not an ace. I wouldn't call an ace, but maybe a number one starter, if not a very good number two starter. Good to have. And then yeah, Clase in the fourth round. Have another surefire guy on third in the fourth round. That's when they started going. And Jason set that trend. He gets a good one here. I don't know about the Guardians as far as a team. I don't know how many good situations they'll be in, how many he's gonna get. I'm down on the team. But very possible that the guy collects 30 to 35 out there. And yeah, Aaron Judge, I'm counting on this guy with my first pick as well. So I'm hoping for like big years out of the middle of the order of the Yankees.
No doubt. No doubt. 6 through 10, we'll go Nick Castellanos in the sixth, Christian Encarnacion Strand in the seventh, Shane Bieber, Marcell Ozuna, and Robert Suarez. The one question I have is if you took Christian Walker in the fifth, what are you doing with Christian Encarnacion Strand in the seventh?
I have a
Maybe just
question
like
about that as too, because I Christian Walker, it's like this guy's at like 30 home runs, 100, like really solid with the power. But you're thinking like, why? Like, why is this such like an untalked about player? And maybe that's just the skepticism is thinking, you know what? This guy just in case. Like, this is my next favorite guy of like thump guys. If Christian Walker, first baseman, thumper doesn't work out, this guy, he's in a great ballpark, great situation, arguably like awesome lineup with all these kids that I just mentioned. And I didn't even mention this guy's name as well. So yeah, it's very possible that it's just that's the reason for it.
Yeah.
But I like the protection there. There's a good chance at least one of them is good. And how do we feel about Nick Castellanos? Is this Nick Castellanos what he did last year or 2022? Like, what are we getting out of this guy?
Jason, what do you think on Nick Castellanos and the rest of these guys?
yeah. Well, first of all, I'm just wondering if maybe Mike just likes first baseman named Christian. Maybe that's a thing. Um, and then Castellanos, yeah. Look, I don't have a problem with him here. Because the potential for him in that lineup and in that ballpark, we've seen it. He had a rough first year in Philadelphia, but like that's to be expected. After that, he was fine. I don't have a problem with him here in the sixth round. Um, the Robert Suarez pick in the 10th round to pair with Clase, I think that's an intriguing pick because Suarez right now is poised to be the closer in San Diego. Don't know if that will be the whole season or not, but for right now, right now, that's pairing him with Clase. That there you go. Those are your two guys, and and we'll get to more in a couple minutes.
Yeah. The 11 through 15, Will Smith, Justin Turner, Eduardo Rodriguez in the 13th, Michael Garcia, and Jonah Heim. So we're wrapping up the lineup and rotation spots here with Eduardo Rodriguez getting his catcher in Jonah Heim from last year. You're upset about the Eduardo Rodriguez pick, aren't you, Jason?
I am, because he took the rug right out of me. That was, I was going there for him, and he took him, and I yelled at him for it because I wanted my Erod in Arizona, absolutely. So enjoy him. Hope he does well for you.
Benji, what do you think of these 5 picks here?
Wow. Well, obviously, I did love the Suarez pick right there, the 10th round. But other than that, yeah, it's Jonah Heim. I mean, this is arguably one of the, if you're going to say top 5 catchers, and he's on that list based on last year, it's not a stupid statement. So you're getting your starting catcher that kind of value in the Texas Rangers lineup in the 15th round. He's a young guy. I thought that was just a great pick right there to get your catcher at that point.
Yeah, he had almost 100 RBIs last year in that strong Texas lineup. No reason he can't repeat at least something close to that this year. We'd love to see some improvement on the run scoring. And you know what? He had 18 homers last year. Maybe he can punch 20 out of the yard this year. Would be really nice. 16 through 26, Cutter Crawford, Trevor Story, Tyler Kinley, Griffin Jacks, who may now be the closer in Minnesota with Yohan Duran down in the 19th round. Trevor McGill, Will Benson, he said was his MVP of the finals last year. So Will Benson comes back on the team in the 21st round. Max Scherzer in the 22nd, John Gray, Sharn Armstrong, Woo Suck Go in the 25th round. And finally rounds it out with Ben's shortstop last year to start the season, John Birdie. You get to see John Birdie rostered again this year. Jason, what do you got here for the final 10 rounds?
This bullpen, I love this, what he did with this bullpen. And again, he took Griffin Jacks from me, and that was before the news about Duran broke. So I was looking at Griffin Jacks that round also, and he grabbed them. I think that's gonna be a great pick. Trevor McGill, he could be one of the guys up for closing duties with Devin Williams out. Tyler Kinley is next if Justin Lawrence fails. This is a great bullpen that he put together. Even Wusa Go, he was a guy in Japan that was closing out games. So if things go sideways in San Diego, you could see him getting some saves as well.
Yeah, could definitely see it. Ben, what do you see in the last 10 rounds here?
Love the protection in the bullpen, like Jason said. And John Gray seems to be doing really well in spring. And they already have him ramped up to 5 innings. So that's a guy that's pretty sneaky in the 23rd round to be a part of your rotation. I love that pick. And Scherzer in the 22nd, and he comes back, very similar to Cole or a Verlander, to just have this guy as mid-season acquisition that could just be stellar and just get you quality innings.
No doubt. What's your favorite pick of this entire draft, Ben Nisman?
Mine, all of mine.
No, of Mike's draft.
Of his specific draft.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I did mention Jonah Heim. That's got to be part of it. Yeah, it's probably either Jonah Heim and John Gray, those two Rangers, where he got them.
Nice. Jason, what'd you like about Mike's draft here? What's your favorite pick?
I love where he got Eduardo Rodriguez, but how about a guy we didn't really highlight? His starting shortstop is Trevor Story, got in the 17th round. If he's healthy, if he's back to being, even if he's not Coors Field Trevor Story, even if he's, a 15 to 20 homer guy, in the 17th round as your shortstop, that is awesome.
Yeah, I think if you can get 10 to 15 steals out of him too, it'll be a really nice get. So it's a really nice pick there in the 17th round, 262 overall for Trevor Story. Very nice. Mike, congratulations on your championship. Good luck defending it this year. Hopefully you won't become the third guy to go back to back. We don't want that to happen.
Oh God.
Yep. We finally finish off this draft review with Costas Paragas, who drafted in the 7th spot, goes Julio Rodriguez, Francisco Lindor, George Kirby, Jordan Romano, and Christian Yelich in the first 5 rounds. Ben, what do you think here?
Is Julio a first rounder? He got it together a little bit later in the season. Jason would speak to it more than I if you felt like he's a first rounder. Obviously, I love Lindor based on like that he's such a baller defensively, gives you the speed, gives you the offense. So I think to have that as your shortstop, really helpful. If George Kirby is, that other part of that 1, 2, 3 punch that Seattle has there, that's how you're shoring up your rotation. Could work out. I'm not really sure. And then, yeah, getting one of those definite closers in Romano. It's really solid. It's very solid first part of the draft. I have no problem with any of these picks.
Yeah. And compare it with the last 2 drafts that we just talked about with Mike Haber and Adam Lowenstein, and even going back one further to Cody. The first 5 rounds, 3 hitters, a starter, and a reliever. It seems like that was the makeup of a lot of our drafts, that the first 5 rounds were try to get as round a project as you can at the base, and then move from there.
Yeah.
Jason,
Yeah.
what do you think here?
Yeah, I loved it. Probably Francisco Lindor is probably the one guy in the entire draft that I really wish I could have gotten, but I couldn't because of where I was drafting. I didn't feel like I could take him at the top of the 2nd round, and I knew he wasn't going to be there by the 3rd round. So like I knew I wasn't getting him, and I wish I could have, because I think he hit 30-30 last year. I don't see the reason why he can't come close to that again. He is like, to me, he's a dynamic ball player. I know the Mets offense is questionable. He's not. If he's on the field, he's good for 162, and he's good for, another 30-30 season possibly. So I love that. I also thought it was interesting that Luis Castillo and George Kirby went back to back. I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, that is very interesting. The top 2 pitchers in Seattle.
It's possible that Adam was thinking, I don't know which one was in front of the other at this point, but the one that was behind was probably thinking, whichever of these Seattle pitchers, if whichever one doesn't get picked, I'll pick.
Yeah, Costas was the final
Behind.
one of those.
Okay.
Yeah, so Costas was behind. 6 through 10 here, we got Tariq Skubal. Unfortunately, Yuri Perez is now dealing with an elbow injury. Josh Lowe, Bryson Stott, and Ke'Bryan Hayes. Jason, a lot of familiar names in this one, but the Yuri Perez pick is the one that really sticks out like a sore elbow. Don't you think?
I see what you did there. Yeah, and Josh Lowe also is going to start the year on the injured list as well. So that's 2 right there that are kind of already filling up your IL spot. Tariq Skubal, he when he's out there, he's great, but he's another guy who we've seen injured a lot. So it's a risk having him be your number 2 in this in the 6th round. But he's probably one of the best available at the time. Although Bobby Miller was also available, I might have gone that way instead. But we'll see. We'll see how it works out. Maybe Josh Lowe doesn't miss a whole lot of time, and he can reap something from that. But yeah, the Yuri Perez thing is a real bummer.
Yeah. Ke'Bryan Hayes, I really like here in the 10th round. I think he could certainly take a big step forward for Pittsburgh this year. Benny, what did you think of these 5 picks here?
Oh, to me, what sticks out is Bryson Stott. This is another Phillies hitter that's off the board like fairly late of considered most of their hitters are in the top few rounds, like no matter what. This guy in the 9th here, if he's batting 9th, he's in front of a lot of fun stuff with those hitters. So all he's got to do is do something similar to what he did last year, and he's definitely good enough for 9th.
No doubt. And hitting in front of potentially Schwarber, Turner, Harper, some combination of those 3.
Castellanos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
11 through 15, we get James Outman, Spencer Torkelson, who hung around forever that guy was on
Yeah.
the board.
Yep.
Brandon Pfaadt, MJ Melendez, and Andrew Nardi. Spencer Torkelson at 186. The guy was just there forever, and I felt like whoever's going to grab him is going to get good value, and it turns out to be Costas. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I was waiting for somebody to take him. I couldn't because I already had Olsen. I'm not going to have two first base only guys, but like by 10 11 by the 10th 11th round, I'm like, where's this guy gonna fall to? Like, if he's around in the 15th, I kind of have to take him. So I'm glad he finally got taken. I like the MJ Melendez. Again, I thought about him, but I knew about Henry Davis, and I kind of waited instead to take that as kind of like a backup catcher slash outfielder. Andrew Nardi is interesting. I guess he's the setup guy for Tanner Scott. I don't know if a setup guy for the Marlins. I don't know if that's rosterable, especially in the 15th round, but okay, we'll see.
Benji, what'd you think of these five guys here?
Okay, I would say huge to get James Outman here because with Josh Lowe out, where's the rest of his outfield? The problem is that Yelich is left, Julio is center, and Outman is left and center. So we're still kind of looking for that right field sealed up spot. Here's MJ Melendez. It looks like he's going to have to be the starting guy now. So we'll see how that all plays out because I mean, it's if Melendez is meant to be the catcher, then he might have some problems right out of the gate. And I wouldn't
Especially
like
with Josh
against
Lowe's hip. Yeah, I would assume that Josh Lowe is supposed to be the right fielder, but we know that hip injury is going to be troublesome to start the season. So it'll be interesting to see what Casas does for his right field spot.
yeah, yeah. And then Torkelson, everyone's very, very high on this guy, and I get it, but I think everyone had their first baseman or someone that they were focused on to be their first baseman at that point. I got Carlos Santana in the 12th round as my first baseman. I wanted him more than Spencer Torkelson, but everyone would think that's like crazy, probably. But I know what stats I was targeting, and I've seen Carlos Santana play his whole career, so I would assume that similar stuff is meant to happen.
Spencer Torkelson went in the 12th round. I was kind of surprised that we didn't see Jay Ferraro get it there. I talked about this on the other show, but he went as far as the 16th round to get his first baseman in Anthony Rizzo. Just sort of expected that to be the play was Jay Ferraro, but instead Costas jumping in here and grabbing this dude as his first baseman for this season. Fantastic. I love the grab personally.
Yeah.
16 through 20, or 26 rather, we get Eric Swanson, Ryan Stanek, Jeff Hoffman, Julian Merriweather, 4 straight relievers to shore up the bullpen. Then Whit Merrifield in the 20th, Mackenzie Gore in the 21st, Yimi Garcia, James Paxton, Keibert Ruiz, Jake Bird, and finishes it off with Griffin Canning. Benji, what'd you like on these 10 picks?
Big to have Ruiz as his catcher because I just had trouble pronouncing his first.
Keibert, yeah,
Keibert. Okay, Keibert Ruiz as his catcher. Now you can have Melendez play right field. Like, thank goodness he went and got himself another catcher with this Josh Lowe situation. Because I'm thinking right off the bat, you're playing Frank, and you're going to have to use one of your ads to fill one of your 9 positions. Like, you don't want to be in that situation, especially not just that it's Frank, but that it's a 13-day matchup. You want to save those ads. Like, that's not a time to fill up the lineup. So, not for nothing, the fact that he picked up a catcher in those late rounds, I think is enormous, enormous, and very, very overlooked. I'm noticing it now for the first time. And then Whit Merrifield, get another Philly hitter. Sure,
Yep.
He's going to get a lot of playing time. Had one of the better seasons that we expected of like guys that are like, he's not good anymore. And, Jason was all over it. Frank was all over it. And it was very useful to have Merrifield. So, and then how about Gore? Just the fact that he's like a baller type guy, expected a lot of him in the trade. I think that he can, I mean, I realize it's a tough division, but not an amazing hitting division besides, yeah, I'd say Miami and the Mets are okay, but like, yeah, you're gonna have to deal with sure Atlanta and Philly, but in general, I think this guy's a pretty decent pitcher as well, especially that late in the draft.
Jason,
Yeah,
you agreeing with that?
that's where I was going right to Gore because he took him from me. I was eyeing him. I think, right now he's due to be the number 3 in Washington, but I think he's better than Patrick Corbin, and I think he may be better than
Yeah,
Josiah Gray when it's all said and done.
yes. I think he's the best pitcher on that team.
Yeah, and like he's looking really good in spring right now. I have my eye on this kid. I think he's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
I agree. I think he's going to be a really nice piece. He was one of the 2 really cornerstone pieces that got moved for Juan Soto along with CJ Abrams. So this trade is looking better and better for Mike Rizzo and the Washington Nationals since they moved on from Juan Soto.
Yeah.
Who do we like overall in Costas's draft? Ben Nisman.
I like that he made sure that he at least got Jordan Romano because after that point, I don't think there's really a guy that you're like, okay, good, he's in the bullpen. There's a chance of a save. So if he finds himself not winning that category, he either adds one based on the schedule that he's dealing with, or he sheds that final closer and he gets a need, whether it's like a major guy in the rotation or a guy that a position that he needs to fill. But like at least he got one guy that either he can use as a chip or maybe he can add another thing. And then there's some versatility here. Thank goodness again, he gets Ruiz to make sure that he can play a full lineup because Lowe is out. Other than that, fantastic beginning, especially his first 5 picks, I think is what I'm most satisfied.
Agreed. Jason, your favorite pick from this draft?
Um, I don't know if it's my favorite, but I think one that's underrated is the Ryan Stanek ad because look, he's the next in line right now after Andres Munoz, and I love myself some Andres Munoz, but he's unproven and he's an injury risk. So this could be a guy that could step in if things go sideways there in Seattle. The one thing I'm cautious about with this team is the rotation because Kirby is great. Skubal can be great. Yuri Perez, we talked about. So like there's some question marks there. Brandon Pfaadt is a nice number 4 if everything works right, but I just don't know if it's gonna work right. And then Mackenzie Gore. So like there and James Paxton. There's some questions in this rotation that I think hopefully he can address throughout the season. But overall, I think it's a really solid team.
Yeah, it's a very young rotation. Kirby, Skubal, Yuri Perez, Brandon Pfaadt, Mackenzie Gore. Granted, James Paxton is an old veteran, but it's a very
It,
young set of guys other than him.
and if Preston is out there, he could be a difference maker. Like we've
Yeah.
seen the good of Paxton. When
Mhm.
he's consistent, he's on a groove, and he's taking the ball one every 5 days. He's a guy that you know that he can at least do something. He's got the best lineup to give him protection right now. Like I think that's a beautiful guy to have in your rotation.
Yeah, he threw 96 innings last year and won 7 games, got 100 strikeouts. Like he'll
Fine.
be
Yeah,
serviceable. He'll eat
when he
some.
pitches. Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, that'll cover the entire draft. Thank you both so much for being here with me. Jason, thanks so much, my friend.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is the 20th draft of the bigs is hard to believe. And I'm so honored to be a part of it, and I can't wait to see what the season brings us, guys. I'm ready to go.
20th season, Commish. Did you ever dream when you built this thing back in 2004 that we'd be here?
No, no way. No way I could imagine it. But I'm grateful it's gone this long. And Jason, thank you so much for your words. Like I said, arguably the best team name at this moment. I think Frank is maybe the front runner with Hold Me Close Otani Dancer.
I do love it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Fantastic job. It just has to be said. And Joe, thank you so much. And Jay Ferraro in the first show was saying that, you know, that I brought it, but like, listen, you guys bring it every single season. I thank you for making this possible because it doesn't happen without you guys. So I appreciate everyone. I hope everyone's ready to compete the same way I am because let's when you have this many amazing managers doing what they're doing, you know that you've earned it. When you're in the playoffs, you've made a run, you're holding the title at the end. You earned it, especially this year. Not just 20 years. This group is a special group. I said in the beginning of the show, I'll say it now. What we're dealing with, like, this is the best of the best. I truly feel that way. I'm excited to get it started. So thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jay, in the review show. I thank everybody in this league. You guys make it what it is. I'm just the maker of games. Thanks for making it possible.
Each and every one of you guys make this league what it is. We thank you so much for being with us, and thank you so much for watching, listening, and keeping this league what it is to make this show what it is. You guys, I can't do a damn thing without content in the league, but you guys make it what it is. Thanks again. Give us a subscribe and a follow if you haven't already, so that you know when we release new content. We will be doing this every single week. We'll be reviewing every single matchup and breaking down what you do in these matchups. Thanks again so much. Until next time, guys, it's been real, it's been fun, and it is always real fun in the bigs. We'll see you next time.